This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
We turn now to look at growing opposition to the U.S. and Israeli war on Iran within the U.S. military. The Center on Conscience and War is reporting it has seen a spike in inquiries from soldiers seeking conscientious objector status.
We're joined by the group's executive director, Mike Preisner. He's in Portland, Oregon. He joined the U.S. Army in 2001 when he was 17, left the military in 2005 after his company participated in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, where he served for a year. He also co-founded March Forward, an anti-war group of veterans and active service members. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. You have reported a staggering surge in calls of people, soldiers, asking about conscientious objector status. Explain what that is and just the scope of this issue.
Well, conscientious objector just means you have a objection to participating in war in any form. And, you know, it has been a difficult few weeks because we have so many people and their families who are desperate to find alternatives to being sent to the Middle East. We have a situation where Trump and his team have launched an unprovoked war with no legitimate rationale, no rational justification, and in partnership with a military that has just committed a genocide in the region. They have imposed this on the American people, the Iranian people, and tens of thousands of service members and their families who believe this is deeply wrong. You know, we haven't just experienced a surge in calls of inquiries, but a surge in people who have actually started the process of filing as conscientious objectors, which is a right to all service members to refuse to participate. You know, we have had about 1,000% increase in CO clients just since the beginning of the war. And to put that in perspective, you know, some of our counselors have been doing this for many, many decades and did this through the entire global war on terror, through the worst years of the Iraq war, the worst years of the Afghanistan war, the highest levels of civilian casualties in both of those wars. And what they are saying is the level that they are seeing now of new conscientious objector clients that we have taken on is unlike anything they have ever seen before, including the worst years of those wars. And, you know, you have to imagine relatively, right? You know, that's a small percentage compared to the number of people in the military. I'm not saying there's a mass uprising of people who are filing as CO right now. It's a significant number. But those are just the people who have called our organization and sought out our help, even know that this right exists. So how many people in the military you think know about the Center on Conscience and War? Probably not that many. And so while it's a relatively small number compared to the hundreds of thousands of people in the military, I would imagine a very small subset actually know about our organization. And we find that the more we're able to reach, the more people will be calling us to file this conscientious objection claim.
And Mike, this is before any ground troops have actually been committed by by President Trump to this war. In previous wars, a lot of this conscientious objector status started already in the midst of war. And clearly in Vietnam, it was a major factor in the demoralization and the reduction of force capability by the United States as thousands fled to Canada or even while they were in the military, then sought conscientious objector status. What do you envision if the president actually does commit troops on the ground in this war?
Well, I imagine it would continue to spike. But, you know, what I think is significant is, you know, in the many dozens and dozens and dozens of people I have talked to who have started working on the conscientious objector claim or submitted it with hours to go before deployment, that's something that's been happening too. You know, I haven't talked to any service member who said that they are scared of dying in a war that they don't believe in. They're scared of killing in a war that they don't believe in. They're scared of the long-term moral consequences of their actions in this moment right now. You know, the number one thing that is cited by service members when I, ask what was their breaking point, what is the reason that made them decide that they had to become a CO, and it was the Manab school bombing, the U.S. massacre at the girls' school in Iran. I think the military is aware of that too. We actually heard from a couple people who said that's when they lost internet access and social media access on a ship is when the news of that broke. And so, I think that regardless of whether or not the U.S. commits ground forces, the fact that U.S. troops are being used to kill from neighboring countries, I think that weighs heavily on people. Look, this is so connected to the past several years. This doesn't just come out of nowhere. We know that in the American society broadly, the genocide in Gaza caused a significant shift in consciousness among people in the United States, in particular young people in the United States. And the military is made up of young people in the United States. And so that shift of consciousness has happened in the military as well. And they have been watching and decided that they couldn't support a government that would kill children with impunity. And then here we are in a war that the U.S. is not only waging with that country, but begins that war by carrying out the kind of action that Israel became notorious for throughout that war. And so they're having to look at themselves and say, what am I willing to do? What kind of person am I? Can I be a part of the kinds of atrocities that I've turned against over the past several years?
And we just have 10 seconds, but several cases of service members who have imminent deployments being taken off the deployment roster when they're considering applying for conscientious objector status?
That is something we can fight for. Your command is obligated to accommodate your beliefs. Look, most people will say, you join the military. It doesn't matter if you think it's immoral. You signed up for this. You have to follow orders. Well, nobody signed up to violate their conscience. Nobody signed up to violate their deeply held beliefs. And you know what? There are DOD policies that can protect you from having to exercise that, and we can help you exercise that.
I want to thank you so much for being with us, Executive Director for the Center on Conscience and War. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.